Hello there, welcome back here. It is Prep with Chigozie. So today we're going to be discussing another topic that students tend to confuse with the matching paragraph heading topic, as you saw in the previous episode on this playlist. If you haven't seen that episode, please go click on it. It will put this video you're about to watch today in better perspective for you. So yes, the matching paragraph heading question type on the IELTS reading tends to be in a way similar to the matching paragraph information question type. Yes, so why matching paragraph heading, as you will see in that previous video, requires you to appropriate each title from a list of titles you have to their respective paragraphs. Matching paragraph information requires you to simply locate specific information right on the question in any of the given paragraphs. So the similarity between both, which students find hard to distinguish, is the fact that both paragraphs are lettered. So the paragraph on the paragraph heading question types, the paragraphs are lettered A to F depending on the number of paragraphs you have, while as well the paragraphs on the matching paragraph heading question type are also lettered C. Now today we'll be going to be delving exclusively into the matching paragraph information, and you will see by the time we're done the very obvious difference between both question type. So come with me. Remember to click on the subscribe button if you're new here, because you're going to be getting loads of such useful content to help you smash the IELTS. So what is the first thing you're meant to do? We're going to be practicing these tips and working on the question we are going to work on in today's class at the same time. So the first place, you want to note the titles, the information you have, right? Know the information you have and pick up keywords from them. Yes, it's important to be clear about the question, just like you're meant to be clear on the paragraph heading question, and of course understand each of the sentences or the phrase you have on the questions and pick up the keywords. You know why this is important? It takes you to the next step, which is of course going into the paragraphs. Now do not expect that each just like you have it, if you have number 25 for example, do not expect that you would find the detail on number 25 in the first paragraph and you'll find the next in the second paragraph. It doesn't happen that way. I mean, that should be a first, second, or third grader kind of exam, I believe. It will be pretty obvious and it will no longer qualify as a test if you ask me. So yes, the paragraphs are scattered. In other words, you will not likely find the information of number 25, which happens to be the first question in this case, in paragraph 1. You could find it in paragraph 1, good, but then expect that you can find it anywhere else, which is why it's important for you to pick up your keywords from all of the paragraphs, from all of the information you have rather, before delving into the paragraphs. So let's do that now with the sample question we have here, right? Yes. So yes, the first question we have is in fact number 27. So we have number 27 down to number 31. What does the instruction say? It said read passage 3. Reading passage 3, yes, has 6 paragraphs A to F. Which paragraph contains the following information? Now this is how you know you're dealing with matching paragraph information, right? Write the correct letter A to F. So A to F are of course the letters appropriated to each of the paragraphs, right? In boxes 27 to 31 on your answer sheet. So if you find that the answer for number 27, this detail of number 27, this phrase, if you find that you can say it in the first paragraph, it then means that your answer for number 27 will simply be A, because A is the tag for the first paragraph. If your answer for number 28 this detail in number 28 happens to be found in paragraph B, it means your answer for number 28 will simply be B, because B is the tag for the second paragraph where you found this information in number 28, right? So I said we should pick up keywords so that when we go into the paragraphs, we have them all in our head, and once we see the paragraph that contains any of the information, we can recall and pick that answer quickly. So in the first place, a use for helium which makes an activity safer. Keyword use for helium. That is one thing. Then we have making an activity safer. So you're expecting to see an activity that the text should say becomes safer to do because of the use of helium in that activity. 28. So we have helium and making an activity safer. Remember, in one of my earliest videos on this playlist, I emphasize that you should not expect the words to mention the exact same way. So it is possible that this information about making activity safer could be rephrased to something that sounds like, oh, with the use of helium to carry out this blah 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 activity, dangers are greatly minimized. So I think that makes sense. Yes, I've said the same thing, but I've changed the word choices, so expect that as well. Number 28 gives us the possibility of creating an alternative, keyword alternative to helium, right? And yes, we have possibility of creating an alternative, possibility. So it means that in that paragraph you will find an information that sounds like, oh, there is a chance that another kind of tool, another kind of chemical composition could pass for helium. Number 29, a term which describes the process of how helium is taken out of the ground. We're looking for a term. So I expect that it's going to be a scientific term that is probably not very familiar. So you may not necessarily have a term in the paragraph in question. You could find that this term is given a name. And if you find that the name is sort of unfamiliar or strange, I think that could suffice as the paragraph that should have that answer. We describe the process of how helium is taken out. So we're looking at taking out of the ground. So I'm expecting this some sort of digging out process, right? Number 30, a reason why users of helium do not make efforts to conserve it. Keywords, users of helium, right? Not making efforts to conserve it is the other keyword. Then the final one, a contrast between helium's chemical properties and how non-scientists. So I want to see in this particular paragraph that contains this information an identification of the different chemical components that form helium. They'll mention all of the different chemical components. They will discuss them in a way, and of course there has to be some sort of mention about what non-scientists, those who are not vast in the area of science, especially when it has to do with helium, because obviously helium is the topic of conversation for this paragraph. Yes, so scientists who do not know very much about helium, what they think about helium. I'm expecting layman or lay people or people who are not educated, anything that refers to the information of non-scientists, right? Yes. Now, this may appear a little time consuming. You're wondering, I don't have a lot of time to do this. You do have a lot of time to do this, because if you don't do this first and you go into the paragraph, trust me, you will spend way more time than you could possibly spend doing this first. Now, with what I have done so far, I have all of the keywords in my head. I can even tell you them off heart. I have making an activity safer with the use of helium. I have the possibility of creating an alternative for helium. I have a term that describes taking helium out of the ground. I have another one. I have to remember this one. Yes, the reason users of helium do not conserve it. And I won't find out because there are 5 questions. Just to assure that I will remember all of them, because I have taken good note of them while discussing them with you just now. So finally, yes, the chemical properties of helium and what non-scientists think about helium. So you see, bingo. Now, dealing with the paragraphs would be easy because I won't have to be going back and forth. Even if I have to, it won't be as I won't waste as much time as I would have wasted if I hadn't looked at this earlier. Okay, so now that we have taken note of the titles, time to look at each paragraph. Right, so you see, in recent years we have been exposed to dire media reports concerning the impending demise of global coal and oil reserves. Nothing so far from what I can remember from the questions, but the depletion of another key non-renewable resource continues without receiving much press at all. That is helium. Oh, the first mention of helium. And inert, okay, an inert, odorless, monatomic element known to lay people. Oh, I've seen something that points to something. I'm sure that has also occurred to you. Yes, I am sure. The physics is sounding like chemical properties. Yes. So we have chemical properties, and how non-scientists, do we have that detail as well? Be sure. Known to lay people as, oh, this is non-scientists, lay people. Yes. are the substance that makes balloon float and voice quake. So of course we can see the contrast here, right? So while helium is understood scientifically to have inert, odorless, monatomic element, it's understood to be these things, right? Lay people think it is just a substance that inflates balloon and make voices quake, right? So I think we have something for one of the questions. Yes, this is out of the way. Very good. Now the next paragraph, let's see. So in your answer key now, what you're required to write for number 31 is A, right? You just write A for number 31. We have 27 to 30 left. The next paragraph. Helium itself is not rare. There is actually a plentiful supply of it in the cosmos. Is this seeming to point to anything? What I've seen so far is that it is not rare. Now notice the difference in how I am dealing with this, right? From how I would deal with the paragraph heading. If I were doing the paragraph heading, I would try to, of course, understand the first sentence and see how that guides me through the rest of the passage, of the paragraph rather. But this one, I am looking for words that point to something I have seen before from the questions, right? So we have, in fact, 24% of our galaxy's elemental mass consists of helium, which makes it the second most abundant element in our universe. Because of its lightness, however, most helium vanish from our planet. I can't see anything. What I've seen so far is how important helium is and how it could vanish. I can't see any point about a safer activity, efforts to conserve it. This may be one of those useless paragraphs, by the way. Remember, I mentioned earlier that, of course, one or two paragraphs will not be used, right? So because of its lightness, however, I can't see anything else. The helium is mostly trapped in subterranean. Oh, I've seen something. The helium, I'm doing this on the spot of the moment, which is why I couldn't, of course, tell immediately, but then I have seen something. The helium is mostly trapped in subterranean natural gas bunkers, okay, and commercially extracted through a method. Oh, I've seen method of extraction. This points to something, right? Known as fractional distillation. This points to something, definitely. We see the means by which it is taken out of the ground, a term. The term we have seen now is what? Fractional distillation. I mentioned earlier that you would often find that the term is unfamiliar and scientific, which is precisely this. Next paragraph. So option B, escaped being a useless paragraph. Option C, paragraph C, the loss of helium on Earth would affect society greatly. Define the perception of it as a novelty substance for parties and gimmicks. The element actually has many vital applications. Okay, the necessity for helium, is that seeming to be pointing to anything before we move on? Right. Oh, it seems not to be pointing to anything so far. Let's read a little further. Probably the most well-known commercially is in airships and blames. Non-flammable helium replaces hydrogen as a lifting. Okay, that is non-essential. Let me take that out. Oh, I think there's something inside that bracket, during which an airship burst into flames and crashed on the ground, killing some passengers. Oh, this is causing harm. But helium, oh, remember, if you watch one of our previous videos, I mentioned how important it is to note transition, all right? And whenever you have transitional word, they are often used to introduce a point that is important for a correct answer. But helium is also instrumental in deep sea diving. Okay, this is pointing to an activity. So does helium mentioned here make the activity safer? You can tell at this point, where it is blended with nitrogen to mitigate the danger. I've seen something. Mitigate the dangers, right, of inhaling ordinary air under high pressure, as a cooling agent for rocket engines, and in its most prevalent use as a coolant for superconducting magnets in hospital MRI. So obviously, see where we got what we're looking for, where it is blended with nitrogen to mitigate the danger of inhaling ordinary air. So a use of helium that makes an activity safer. Activities, of course, in the case of deep diving, that's gotten. We have just two options left. Wow, this is going pretty fast. Next paragraph, the possibility. How come we don't have any useless paragraph from A to C so far? Okay, because we are certain those answers are correct, right? Yes. D, the possibility of losing helium forever poses the threat of a real crisis because its unique qualities are extraordinarily difficult. Okay, the difficulty of getting the kind of qualities of helium from any other element, I am guessing, if not impossible to duplicate. Certainly, oh, the idea of possibility of duplicating. We have if not impossible to duplicate. Have we seen something? I am seeing something that points to an alternative, creating an alternative. That means duplicating is making helium in another element, in another form. Okay, that is not precise. That's not precise. To duplicate, of course, to do helium again, to produce another kind of helium. Oh, it's making sense actually in terms of our alternative. Yeah. Certainly, no biosynthetic earth product is close to approaching the point of feasibility for helium, even as similar developments continue apace for oil and coal. Helium is even cheerfully derided as a loner element since it does not adhere to other molecules like its cousins. So we are saying, why it is impossible to get helium back because other elements do not look like it. According to helium is the most noble gas, remaining it is very stable and non-reactive. Okay, it has close electronic. The worsening global shortage could render millions of dollars of high value life-saving equipment totally useless. The dwindling supplies have already resulted in the postponement of research and development projects in field laboratories and manufacturing plants around the world. Okay, this is not pointing to anything. This all points to dwindling. There is an enormous supply and demand imbalance, partly brought about by yes, because the as I actually said, the question says the possibility. That means there is a chance of trying to duplicate helium, considering how scarce it currently is. So I'm holding on to this tentatively. Yes, let me hold on to this tentatively, right, and see whether some other paragraph could have that information. The source of problem in the Helium Privatization Act and American law partner agencies that require the U.S. National Helium Reserve, Helium Reserve, I'm seeing some sort of conservation agency, sort of, to liquidate its helium asset by 2015 regardless of the market price, although intended to settle the original cost of reserve by reserve. See, it's pointed to conservation, right? Congress ignorant of its ramifications. The result of this fire sale is that global helium prices are so artificially deflated and that few can be bothered recycling or using it judiciously. Few can be bothered recycling. What does this point to? You want to ask? Definitely something we have seen earlier, right? Congress, US Congress is ignorant of its ramifications. The result of this fire sale is the global helium price are so artificially deflated. Few people can be bothered, so there isn't their interest to try to preserve it. So a reason why a lot of helium do not, the reason of course because of the pricing, right? And then we have conserve it. We saw so many pointers to that anyway. Cannot be bothered to recycling, which points to of course conserving, right? So there you have it. Yes, take some practice questions just so you are better able to master the difference between paragraph heading and matching paragraph information. And I'm sure from what you just listened and watched right now, you can apply the tips respective to each of the question types, right? So if you haven't watched the video on matching paragraph heading, I want to encourage that you do that now. And if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe, feel free to ask your questions in the comment section, and I'll be very much available to provide answers to all of your questions. So until I see you again in another video on the IELTS reading section, I hope you keep practicing and I wish you the very best on your upcoming test.